Mitchell has his head up, takes the feet. Oh, my! Donovan!
Get that weak stuff out of here!
The situation that they've been put in has forced them to step out of their comfort zone and try and fit what this team needs to win. So I think that's a good way to just transition to Jarrett Allen in general, because after last year's playoffs, I don't think anyone in the NBA was clowned more than Jarrett Allen. Much of it was deserved. Some of it was a bit unfair, but regardless, he has stepped up in the biggest way that you could hope so far. He's been Donovan Mitchell's the driving force, but Jarrett Allen has been right up there with him and leading this charge and helping the Cavs survive all those injuries early on. He legitimately played at an all-star level. Whether or not he got into the game doesn't matter, because, I mean, he was really playing like that dude. He was the defensive anchor. He's been showing us a lot of growth on offense. So has this been a season of redemption for Jarrett Allen? What are you seeing from him?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, with Jarrett, the concern for me is always with the pairing of him and Evan. They're tall, but they're not big, right? They're both thinner centers and forwards. So that's kind of the issue with Jarrett that I worry about. I think they have some better pieces than like polishing it off Robin Lopez, like off the bench. Like if you run into some bigger opponents, like, you know, eventually when Tristan comes back from this PED suspension, I think that's somebody you could throw at somebody for like 20 minutes in a series to try to plug a problem real quick. But yeah, I think Jarrett was a victim of the lack of depth that they had when it came to bigs last year, right? I think that was really the issue for him, is that he was in a mismatch. They really had no solution around it, and he got dominated. And because he's Jarrett Allen and because he's super nice and he's super honest, it's real easy to pick on him when he says something like, oh, yeah, you know, the lights were too bright. He's being honest. It probably was a little bit of what happened there, but he became the easy guy to kind of point at. And that's just an unfortunate thing that Jarrett Allen kind of has to deal with. But this year he's really responded from that, right? Because he could have crumbled and nobody would have been really that surprised, because that was almost a crumbling like performance in the playoffs. But he came back and he's playing, you know, the best basketball he's played since he's been an all-star, right? You can argue even better basketball. He's averaging 3 assists this year, which is insane. Yeah, so he's been excellent. I think this has been a really good redemption year for him. I think he's also like taken the initiative to be a little bit more aggressive too on the offensive side when it comes to, like, sometimes he would be hesitant to dunk when he had a clear lane or when he had a little bit of a congested lane. He's more willing to take that on. And I think he learned a lot of lessons. Like, you know, I don't look, as much as we didn't like seeing Mitchell Robinson box him out and move him around all series, I'm pretty sure he liked it less. And he seems like he responded to it all season by trying to figure out how that cannot happen again. Because for Jarrett Allen, this isn't the first time something like that's happened. Remember when he was in Brooklyn, he went against Joel Embiid in the 76ers, and Joel gave him some work in that series as well. And it's not Jarrett's fault. He's 6'9", 240. Joel is 7 foot 270, really, like
Joel's a lot to handle.
Yeah, Joel's a big dude. Like, and Jarrett's not really built for that. He's more of an agile big defender. So it's kind of like an unfortunate mismatch that he got caught up in a couple of times. And, you know, he can only do so much with his physical profile, but I think he's done what he can do to be able to fix that, become a more versatile player on both ends of the field, both ends of the court. My bad, I'm still in football mode. And really be somebody who I'm not concerned about going into the playoffs. And, you know, it's good for Jarrett, because a lot of people wanted him to trade Jarrett Allen for nothing. And
yeah,
I was like, yeah, you might want to consider, like, at the peak of it, I was mad at Jarrett, and I was like, maybe you want to consider getting bigger at the center position if you're going to roll out Evan Mobley, because it's just not a fair matchup sometimes. But I wasn't going to trade Jarrett Allen for nothing, because Jarrett Allen was still a productive player. And I think that's what he's proving right now, is that he's still a very, very productive player right now. 15 and 10, 10 and 3. And, you know, his percentages speak for itself. So he's been a really good player for this team and really held it down for the Cavs in this tough spot. Yeah, him and Donovan really have held it down in a really tough time for this team.
Definitely. I'd say holding on to Allen this summer paid off when everyone got injured, and he reminded us of how impactful he can be. And hopefully he continues to do that. I think it's very, very important that he didn't just crumble after that playoff series, because we've seen star players and even role players have series defining moments like that, or career defining moments like that, where they collapse in a series and they can just never bounce back. Jarrett Allen's number one enemy, Ben Simmons, is a good example of that. Granted, he had a lot of injuries that have plagued the last few years for him, but he collapsed against the Hawks, and it seemed like he never really recovered mentally from that. So for Jarrett Allen, the key, of course, is going to be how he performs in the playoffs. As much as he has been redeeming himself, it is all, whether it's fair or not, it's going to come down to, does he show up in the playoffs? Because if he struggles again, this is all kind of for nothing, right? And that's really the weird position that the Cavs in general seem to find themselves in, where it's like, no matter how good they play in the regular season, nobody's going to take them seriously. Nobody's going to give them credit until they prove it in the playoffs. And so that's where I want to transition to our final question. Is this Cavs team as good as it seems?
The one number that jumps out to me compared to last year is the road record, right? Their road record was, I think, barely above 500, if not below 500. If it was like one game over 500. No, I think it was actually like a game below 500. So their road record was terrible last year. This year, they're about as good at home as they are on the road. So they're a pretty even team both ways. The reason I think that's important is what the road record reflects is how resilient is your team when it comes to being able to win in different ways during the regular season. Because when you have a good road record, that means, okay, you had a bad shooting night, but you were still able to win that game, right? Because that just happens when you have these road trips, these back-to-backs. And that's something to me is like, okay, when everything's not going the way it's supposed to go, they're still figuring out ways to win games. And that's what it really takes in the playoffs. I remember last year, they were playing Philadelphia. I think this was like when they were battling for the 3 seed, and it was on ESPN. And Philly just decided, we're going to let you shoot threes. We're not going to let you get anything inside. We're just going to let you shoot threes. And the Cavs could not make a three. They could not adjust to that to save their lives. And that was a big problem with them, right? If the things went the Cavs' way, they got some scoring from their guards. If Darius was hot, if Donovan's making threes, they're a very dangerous team. But the second that stops to happen, things start to break down. All of a sudden, those lobs aren't there for Mobley. All of a sudden, Jarrett Allen's not getting open. All of a sudden, all these things that they're relying on don't happen for them. This year, it's different, right? They have spot shooters. They're a much better shooting team than last year. They're still a good defensive team. I think this team is better suited for the challenge of the playoffs. I think JB is better suited for the challenge of the playoffs because they have more pieces to adjust to. Like the bench scoring last year was atrocious almost all season. This year it's a little bit better. You have pieces like Sam Merrill coming off the bench along with Karis LeVert. It's not just like one guy who could score coming off the bench like last year. And like last year we had to polish off like Danny Green in the playoffs. Like it was not a great situation. So yeah, I think this is a good team. Are they going to live up to the expectations if they're the 2 seed in the playoffs? I don't know if they live up to the expectations of being the 2 seed in the playoffs, if we just look at it from that perspective. But I don't think the Cavs, even if they are the 2 seed, are going to have 2 seed expectations. They're going to have a team had a really good year, but they are the 2 seed expectations, which is kind of what it was last year, right? Get out of the first round, push somebody in the second round to 6 games, or get out of the second round, get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Anything above that is cookies. They're a really good young team right now that shouldn't have championship expectations, but that doesn't mean that they can't have a season that people walk away with having a lot of fun from. And, look, every year you're not going to win a championship, but I think there are years where you could take away a lot from what a team does if they do it in a positive direction. And that is some level of fulfilling, right? Like people act like sports, you can't enjoy anything. Like there's like winning a championship and there's nothing else in between, but there's a ton in between. That in between winning a championship
basically all of
what
it
keeps people going into sports, right? Because honestly, like if the team won the championship, it's like, it's fun for like the first week and it's like, oh, well, we won. And then you kind of
then it's
relax.
like, can we 2-peat? Can we get another one? Like it immediately, the cycle just begins again. I agree. You got to enjoy the process, man. That's literally like, listen, we had LeBron James for 11 years and we got 1 championship out of it. Like it's just tough to win championships, dude. Like especially in all sports, really. It's such an impossible thing. If you're holding your team to that expectation every year, I mean, hey, if that's how you want to watch sports, that's how you want to watch sports, but it's just going to be hard to really enjoy it because especially this Cavs team right here, like Donovan Mitchell is our best player and he's 27 years old. That's the same age LeBron was when he finally won his first ring. So it's like Donovan Mitchell's still young. The rest of this core is still really young. If you're putting those expectations on them this early, you're kind of setting yourself up to just not be able to enjoy this team for what they are because this has been a very fun iteration of the Cavs. One of my biggest concerns entering the year was that not only would I be disappointed if they were a disappointment, but I would be sad if we had to blow this team up because I really enjoy the group that they've put together. They're a really fun group and I want to root for them. Hopefully we'll see. I think the Cavs, I think they are as good as they seem. I don't think that means they're going to win the championship. I think if they can get out of the second round, that would be a huge, huge win. Really, I just want to see them get out of the first round. That's like the bar for me. But like when you look at basically any advanced metric or whatever, the Cavs, they're just killing it. They look like a title contender. And that's how it looked last year too. I think the difference, and maybe this sounds silly, but I really think if you just watch the games, it just looks completely different. This looks like a team that actually it matches the eye test and the analytics. They're playing a style of basketball that the offense looks more like 2024 than 2007. They're taking threes and they have guys who can actually make them. They're really good on defense, but they're not relying on turning every game into a rock fight. They can take on a Sacramento Kings and beat them in a shootout. They can beat Milwaukee by 40 points. They can really turn it on when they need to on both ends of the floor, which is something I don't think we saw last year.